The day releases its hold on you, slowly, gently, like fingers loosening their grip one by one. Whatever weight you've been carrying begins to soften at the edges, dissolving into the quiet space you've created for yourself right now. The room around you grows peaceful, and somewhere in that stillness, you feel the first whisper of evening air from a place far from here, a place where the sun sets differently, where the light has a particular quality that has drawn travelers for more than 2,000 years. Samarkand. The name settles into your awareness like dust settling after a caravan has passed, gradual, gentle, inevitable. As your breathing deepens, the familiar sounds around you begin to fade, replaced by something else. You hear it first, the distant call of a merchant closing his stall, the specific clatter of brass plates being stacked, the soft shuffle of felt slippers on stone. The air around you seems to change, carrying new scents, unfamiliar spices, sun-baked brick, the particular dryness that comes from a city built at the edge of the Kaiselkum Desert. Your eyes remain closed, but you sense the light changing, becoming golden, then amber, the way it does in places where the sun must travel through dust and distance before it reaches you. And somehow, without quite knowing how you've traveled, you're there, standing at the edge of Samarkand's old city, just as evening begins to claim it. The modern world falls away behind you, the traffic, the concrete, the familiar rhythms of contemporary life, and ahead lies something older, something that moves to a different tempo entirely. The streets here are narrow, paved with stones worn smooth in the center, where countless feet have walked the same path. Each stone carries a shallow depression, polished to an almost glass-like finish by the soft leather soles of traditional boots, by bare feet, by merchant sandals, by the silk slippers of ancient nobility. The first stars are beginning to appear above the city's skyline, faint at first against the darkening canvas of the sky. They emerge slowly, as if being painted one by an invisible hand, each point of light adding to a constellation that has watched over this crossroads for millennia. Below them, the distinctive silhouettes of domes and minarets stand against the twilight, their surfaces still holding traces of the day's warmth. The air carries the specific fragrances of a Central Asian evening. There's the warm smell of fresh non-bread from the tandoor ovens, that particular mix of wheat and smoke that hasn't changed since these ovens were first built into the ground centuries ago. You catch the lingering sweetness of dried apricots and sultanas from a spice seller's stall, the sharp tang of green tea being brewed behind a wooden door, and underneath it all, that particular scent of a desert city at dusk, dry clay, mixed with the faint moisture from the narrow irrigation channels, the ariks, that still thread through the neighborhoods like they have since the Sogdians first diverted water here. As you walk, your pace naturally slows. There's something about these streets that resists hurrying. Perhaps it's the way each step must find its place on the uneven stones, or maybe it's simply that after traveling such a distance to reach this moment, there's no reason to rush. Your breathing deepens, matching the rhythm of this place that has seen empires rise and fall, that has been destroyed and rebuilt, that has somehow maintained its essential character through all the changes of time. The sounds of evening conversations drift from doorways. An elderly woman speaking Tajik to her neighbor, her words punctuated by the click of knitting needles. From another direction comes the distinctive melody of Uzbek, younger voices discussing something that makes them laugh, the sound bright against the darkening sky. A radio plays quietly from an upper window, the news in Russian giving way to a traditional shashmakom melody, its complex rhythms floating down into the street like silk scarves on a breeze. A bicycle passes on a parallel street, its bell chiming once, twice, then fading into the distance. Above you, the sky continues its slow transformation. The harsh blue of day has given way to something more complex, layers of color that shift and blend like watercolors on wet paper. Rose gold near the horizon, deepening to purple, then to that particular shade of evening blue that seems to exist nowhere else but in the sky at this exact moment of transition. Against this backdrop, the first bats begin their evening hunt, their erratic flight patterns scribing invisible stories in the air. You notice how the temperature drops as soon as you step into shadow. The walls here are thick, built to withstand both the scorching summers and the surprising cold of winter nights. They hold the day's heat like a memory, releasing it slowly as darkness falls. When you brush your hand against one of these walls, you can feel the layers of plaster and mud brick, the slight irregularities that speak of human hands at work, of construction methods passed down through families like recipes or songs. The turquoise tiles that Samarkand is famous for begin to lose their brilliant daylight colors, becoming something more mysterious in the fading light. The geometric patterns that seemed so bold and clear in sunshine now blur at the edges, creating new shapes in the spaces between what's clearly visible and what's merely suggested. It's as if the city is showing you a different face, one reserved for those who stay past the tourist hours, who are willing to see it in this quieter, more intimate light. A door opens somewhere ahead, spilling warm yellow light onto the street for a moment before closing again. In that brief illumination, you glimpse the interior courtyard of a traditional house, a fountain, some potted plants, a family gathering for the evening meal. The momentary view feels like a gift, a small window into the private life of the city that continues regardless of who comes to visit. Your footsteps on the worn stones create their own rhythm, a soft percussion that echoes differently depending on the width of the passage. In the narrow alleys, they return to you immediately, intimate and close. Where the streets open into small squares, the sound spreads and softens, mixing with the splash of water from a fountain, the rustle of mulberry leaves overhead, the distant tap-tap-tap of a coppersmith finishing his last piece of the day. This rhythm of walking becomes your rhythm, your breath matching your steps, your heartbeat finding its own slower pace. The air continues to cool, and with it comes a settling feeling, as if the city itself is preparing for rest. Shop owners pull down metal shutters with practiced ease. Children's voices, which filled the streets an hour ago, have retreated indoors. Even the cats that prowl these alleys seem to move more quietly now, shadows among shadows. As you continue deeper into the old city, you realize that you're not just observing this transition from day to night, you're part of it. Your presence here, however brief, adds another layer to the countless evenings that have fallen over Samarkand. You're walking where silk traders once counted their profits by lamplight, where pilgrims paused in their journey to Mecca, where Tamerlane's architects sketched their dreams of azure domes, where astronomers hurried home after nights spent mapping the stars. The path ahead curves gently, leading you toward the heart of the old city. In the distance, you can just make out the silhouette of the Registan, the great fluted dome of the Tilia-Kori Madrasa, rising against the darkening sky, its surface still holding a faint gleam where the last light catches the remnants of gold leaf that once covered it entirely. But there's no rush to reach it. Tonight, you have all the time you need. The city will reveal itself to you gradually, in its own time, as it has to travelers since the days when Alexander paused here, when Tamerlane made it his jewel, when scholars mapped the stars from observatories that touched the sky, And as you walk forward, feeling the last warmth of day giving way to the cool of evening, you know that this journey has only just begun. The path you've been following through the old city begins to widen, the close walls that have been guiding you suddenly pulling back like curtains being drawn. The intimate scale of the narrow streets gives way to something else, a sense of space opening up ahead, the kind of architectural anticipation that ancient builders understood how to create. Your feet know before your eyes do that you're approaching something monumental. The sounds change first. Where before your footsteps echoed off nearby walls, now they seem to dissipate into a larger volume of air. The concentrated fragrances of the small streets, bread and spices and tea, become diluted with something else, the particular scent of open space in an old city, where centuries of dust and prayer and human presence have settled into the very atmosphere. And then you see it. The Registan Square reveals itself not all at once, but gradually, as you emerge from the last turn of the approaching street. First, you catch a glimpse of tile work, a vertical river of turquoise and cobalt that seems impossible in its height and intricacy. Then more appears, and more, until you're standing at the edge of one of the world's most magnificent public spaces, trying to understand the scale of what rises before you. 3 madrasas stand guard over the square, their facades catching the last generous light of day. The Ulu Beg Madrasa on your left, the oldest of the 3, wears its 6 centuries with dignity. The geometric patterns on its portal seem to pulse gently in the amber light. Stars within stars within stars, mathematical precision rendered in ceramic and stone. To your right, the Sherdor Madrasa answers with its famous tigers, though they look more like lions with the sun's rays streaming from their backs, chasing white deer across the ancient tiles. And straight ahead, completing this symphony of architecture, the Tilia Kori Madrasa spreads its wings, its name meaning covered in gold, and in this light you can see why. The air here moves differently than in the streets. It circulates in the vast space between the buildings, carrying with it a mixture of sounds that seem both immediate and eternal. You hear the soft cooing of pigeons that have made their homes in the high corners of the iwans, those massive arched niches that punctuate each facade. Their wings rustle against the tilework as they settle for the evening, finding roosts in places where the geometric patterns create small ledges and shadows, as if the ancient architects had designed these perches specifically for them. The square isn't empty, but it's finding its evening rhythm. A few other visitors move quietly through the space, their voices hushed not by rules or signs, but by the natural reverence that such places inspire. An elderly man is slowly, methodically closing his small craft stall near the base of the Uluh Beg Madrasa. His movements are unhurried, folding textiles with practiced care, wrapping ceramic pieces in soft cloth, placing each item in wooden boxes, worn smooth by years of this same evening ritual. The metallic clink as he closes the brass clasps on his cases rings clearly in the still air. You walk forward into the square, and the sensation changes immediately. The air feels cooler here, as if the open space allows the evening breeze to gather and circulate freely between the 3 great buildings. The stones beneath your feet are smooth and slightly warm, still holding the day's heat. They're arranged in subtle patterns that guide movement through the space, pathways worn slightly deeper where countless feet have walked the same routes. Some stones are original, their surfaces polished to a soft sheen. Others are newer replacements, their edges still sharp, their color not quite matching, evidence of the constant, careful maintenance that keeps this place alive. A faint breeze moves across the square, carrying with it the mixed sense of cooling stone, distant cooking fires, and the particular dusty sweetness that gathers in Central Asian squares at day's end. The light is extraordinary now. The sun, low on the horizon, transforms everything it touches. The blue tiles become liquid, flowing down the facades like frozen waterfalls. The geometric calligraphy, verses from the Quran, poetry, dedications to knowledge, catches fire along its edges, each letter outlined in gold that seems to glow from within. The shadows are deep purple, almost black in the recesses of the iwans, creating a sense of infinite depth, as if these doorways might lead not just into buildings, but into other times entirely. You notice how sound behaves in this space. A child's laugh from the far side of the square reaches you with perfect clarity, as if the three madrasas have been precisely positioned to create this acoustic phenomenon. When you walk beneath one of the great archways, the temperature drops several degrees, and your footsteps suddenly acquire a resonance that seems to come from the earth itself. The arch above you is decorated with mukanas, those honeycomb patterns that look like frozen mathematics, each tiny facet catching and reflecting sound in ways that make even breathing feel musical. Near the shared door madrasa, you pause to examine the tilework more closely. What seemed from a distance to be solid fields of colour reveals itself as thousands upon thousands of individual pieces, each one cut and glazed and placed by hand. Some are no bigger than your thumbnail. The joints between them create a secondary pattern, a network of dark lines that holds the whole design together like the lead in stained glass. In places, tiles have fallen away, revealing the brick structure beneath, a reminder that even something this magnificent requires constant care to persist through time. The evening prayer call begins to sound from somewhere beyond the square, not loud or intrusive, but present, threading through the air like another layer of the approaching night. It's answered by another call from a different direction, and then another, creating a gentle web of sound that seems to connect all parts of the old city. The pigeons stir at the sound, some taking flight in small groups, their wings catching the last light as they circle once, twice, then settle again. A vendor with a small cart passes through the square, selling fresh bread. The smell reaches you before you see him, that unmistakable aroma of naan just pulled from the tandoor oven, its surface still crackling from the heat. He doesn't call out his wares. Regulars know his schedule, and sure enough, a few people emerge from side streets to make their purchases. The bread is wrapped in cloth that keeps it warm, and you can see the steam escape when each bundle is opened to check the contents. As you continue your slow exploration of the square, you notice how each madrasa seems to hold the light differently. The Ulugh Beg on your left has already fallen into shadow, its blue tiles now the colour of deep water. The share door still glows faintly, its portal catching reflected light from somewhere. The Tilia Courier head shifts between gold and grey as clouds pass overhead. The spaces between the buildings create channels where cooler air flows through, and you can feel these invisible rivers of breeze as you walk, each one carrying slightly different temperatures, different sounds from the streets beyond. The sky above the square has become a canvas of transformation. The blue that was so intense an hour ago has given way to layers of colour that seem to emanate from the horizon and wash upward, orange to pink to purple, to the first hints of night. Venus has appeared, bright and steady above the Tilia Kori Madrasa's dome, the first star of evening. Soon others will join it, but for now it shines alone, a bright point in the deepening sky. The air has grown noticeably cooler, and you can feel the gentle movement of evening breezes that weren't there before, drawn through the square by the temperature difference between the still warm stones and the cooling air above. You find a place to sit on the worn steps that lead up to the Tilia Kori Madrasa. The stone is smooth and cool now that it's in shadow. From here, you can watch the light perform its final act across the facades of the other two madrasas. The blue tiles are becoming purple, then grey, then something beyond colour, pure form and shadow. The gold accents hold the light longest, glowing like embers in a dying fire. A cat appears from somewhere, moving with the confidence of a creature that knows it belongs here. It stretches lazily, then pads across the square, its shadow long and thin in the horizontal light. It pauses near the elderly vendor who has almost finished packing his stall, and you see him reach into a pocket and place something small on the ground. The cat investigates, approves, and settles down to eat. The transformation is nearly complete now. What was a sun-drenched monument to human achievement and divine glory has become something quieter, more mysterious. The patterns that were so clear in daylight have become suggestions, puzzles for the eye to solve in the gathering darkness. The space feels larger somehow, as if the night has added extra dimensions that weren't there before. As you sit in the gathering dusk, you become aware of the others who share this space with you. A young couple walks slowly along the far wall, their quiet conversation drifting across the square. An old woman in traditional dress crosses diagonally, her footsteps confident, even in the dimming light. She's walked this path many times before. Two students emerge from the Uluh Beg Madrasa, books under their arms, continuing a discussion that started in their classroom. The bread vendor has gone, but the scent of his wares still lingers faintly. The elderly craftsman finally clicks the last lock on his cases and walks away, his shadow long behind him. Each person moves through the square at their own pace, part of an evening rhythm that has continued here for centuries. The first proper stars are beginning to appear now, and the square is settling into its nighttime quiet. The pigeons have gone silent in their roosts. The sound of footsteps grows less frequent, each one echoing a little longer in the stillness. You can feel the stored heat of the day leaving the stones beneath you, replaced by the cool of night that flows in from the surrounding streets like a slow tide. The breeze has shifted, now coming from the north, carrying the faint sound of someone playing a rhubarb in a distant courtyard, the notes drifting and fading. Your breathing has found its own quiet rhythm, matching the gentle pulse of the evening square. The patterns on the madrasas have become suggestions in the darkness, a glimmer here, a shadow there, shapes that might be tilework or might be imagination. Soon you'll move on, following the cool air deeper into the city's evening embrace. But for now, you remain still, feeling the night settle around you like a soft blanket, listening to the square breathe itself into sleep, one gentle exhalation at a time. You leave the Registan Square by a side street, following the sound of water. It's a subtle sound, almost hidden beneath the evening's other noises, but persistent, the gentle splash and trickle that has guided people through this city for centuries. The narrow alley you've chosen slopes gently downward, and the air grows cooler as you descend, carrying the green scent of vegetation that always gathers near water in a desert city. The source reveals itself as you round a corner. An old stone channel running along the street's edge, no wider than your foot, carrying clear water that catches the last reflected light from the sky. These are the descendants of the ancient Arik system, the network of channels that has kept Samarkand alive since before written memory. A small boy crouches beside it, sailing a paper boat in the gentle current. His grandmother watches from a doorway, her face peaceful in the gathering dusk. She nods at you, that universal acknowledgement between strangers in a quiet evening. Through an open gate, you glimpse a family courtyard where the evening meal is being prepared. A woman tends to a pot over a small fire, the smoke carrying the rich scent of plov, rice and lamb and carrots cooking slowly with cumin and coriander. Children's voices drift from inside the house, punctuated by an adult's gentle correction. A television flickers in one window, its blue light mixing strangely with the warm yellow of oil lamps that still supplement electricity here when the power grows uncertain. Through an open window above, the blue flicker of a television mixes with the warm yellow of oil lamps. A satellite dish perches on a wall, built when caravans still stopped here, its modern angles strange against the weathered brick. The same courtyards that now hold motorcycles once sheltered camels for the night. You can see it in the height of the doorways, built to accommodate loaded animals, in the iron rings still embedded in walls where ropes once held restless horses. You continue walking, drawn by a rhythmic sound from ahead. Through another doorway, this one half open, you see an elderly craftsman working by lamplight. His hands move with practiced precision, pressing patterns into soft copper with tools that look ancient themselves. Worn wooden handles polished smooth by generations of use. The design taking shape under his fingers is the same geometric pattern you saw on the Registan's tiles, but rendered in metal. Each tap of his hammer is deliberate, unhurried. He doesn't look up as you pass, absorbed completely in work that his grandfather's grandfather might have done in exactly the same way. The street opens into a small square where an old mulberry tree spreads its branches wide, creating a natural gathering place. Stone benches circle its trunk, worn smooth by countless sitters. A few elderly men occupy one bench, playing backgammon in the fading light, the click of pieces on wood a gentle percussion in the evening air. They play without speaking much, each move considered, but not laboured, the game flowing with the ease of long practice. Near them, a younger man sits with a book, using the last natural light to read. As you pass close enough to see, you notice it's not just any book, but a mathematical text, equations filling the margins in pencil. The young man's mathematical text catches the last light, and above him, the first stars are becoming visible. Around the base of the mulberry tree, the stone is worn in a particular pattern, smooth depressions where countless students have sat over the centuries, all looking up at these same stars. The tree itself must be ancient, its trunk so thick your arms couldn't circle it, its roots lifting the paving stones in gentle waves that no one has bothered to repair, as if the tree's age gives it rights the city respects. As if drawn by the evening stars, you notice a small building ahead with an unusual dome, different from the others you've seen. Through its open door, the air carries the particular scent of old paper and brass, star charts yellowed at the edges, instruments worn smooth by careful hands. A professor is setting up equipment on the roof, his breath just beginning to show faintly in the cooling air. The stone steps leading up are deeply worn in the center, polished by countless nights of astronomers climbing to meet the stars. The street continues past workshops that are closing for the night. Through one window, you see silk threads hanging in long skeins, their colors muted in the dim light. Deep reds, golds, blues that echo the tiles of the monuments. The smell of the dye still lingers, vegetable-based and earthy. In the morning, these threads will become the ikat fabrics that Samarkand is famous for. Patterns that seem to shimmer and shift like desert mirages. A door opens ahead, spilling warm light and the sound of music onto the street. It's a small tea house, barely marked, the kind of place you find by accident or recommendation. The music is live, someone playing a dutar, the two-stringed instrument that has accompanied Central Asian songs since before the Silk Road had a name. The melody is simple, repetitive, hypnotic in the way that ancient music often is, designed not to entertain, but to create a space for thought or conversation or simple being. You pause at the doorway, and the proprietor gestures you in with a smile that needs no translation. Inside, the walls are covered with carpets and textiles, their patterns creating a soft geometry that seems to breathe in the lamplight. Men sit on raised platforms covered with cushions, shoes left at the edge, tea glasses catching the light like small amber jewels. The conversation is quiet, respectful of the music, which continues its gentle cycle. The tea arrives without being ordered, green, served in a small bowl. The proprietor pours and returns the first serving to the pot, then again, then once more, his movements automatic and smooth. The warmth of the bowl spreads through your palms, a welcome contrast to the cool air that's begun to creep in through the doorway. Outside, the temperature has dropped enough that people walk more quickly now, shoulders drawn up slightly against the chill. Through the window, stars multiply in the darkening sky, sharp and clear in the desert air. You wrap your fingers more tightly around the warm ceramic, feeling the heat seep into your bones. The musician pauses between songs, and in the quiet, you hear the evening prayer call again, more distant now, from a neighborhood mosque. It's answered by another, and another, creating layers of sound that seem to reach both backward and forward in time. The men in the tea house listen without stopping their quiet activities, one reading a newspaper, another repairing a watch with tiny, precise movements, a third simply sitting with his tea, eyes half closed in contemplation. Outside, the city continues its evening transformation. Through the tea house door, you watch people passing. A woman in a traditional coat over modern clothes, teenagers with mobile phones photographing an ancient carved door, an old man with a walking stick that might be older than he is. Each person moves through the twilight at their own pace, adding to the city's endless accumulation of moments. The proprietor brings a small plate of sweets, halva and dried fruits, the sustenance of travelers since caravans began. The halva dissolves on your tongue, sesame and honey, a flavor that hasn't changed in 1,000 years. The dried apricots are intense, concentrated sunshine from the famous orchards that surround the city. You sit back against the cushions, letting the warmth of the tea and the rhythm of the dutar wash over you. No one speaks for a long while. The musician plays the same melodic phrase again and again, each repetition slightly different, like waves against a shore. The lamplight flickers occasionally, making the carpet patterns seem to shift and breathe. Your breathing has slowed to match the music's pace. The men around you sit in their own quiet bubbles. One has closed his eyes, his tea glass cooling in his hands. Another watches the lamp flame with the unfocused gaze of deep thought. Time moves differently here, measured not in minutes but in the slow cooling of tea, the gradual darkening of the window, the gentle accumulation of silence between the notes of music. The musician begins another song, this one even slower, more contemplative. It might be ancient, or composed yesterday. In this setting, it doesn't matter. What matters is how it fits into the evening's texture, how it provides a soundtrack for the city's gentle transition from day to night, from activity to rest. You finish your tea, the warmth settling deep in your chest while the night air grows cooler against your face. The temperature difference makes you drowsy, the heat inside, the chill beginning to press against the windows. Your body knows this signal, this ancient transition from the day's warmth to night's cooling, the same signal that has told humans to seek shelter and rest since before cities existed. Soon you'll step back into the night, following the water channels deeper into the sleeping city. But for now, you rest in this pocket of warmth, feeling the day's accumulated heat slowly leaving the walls around you, the city exhaling its long, slow breath into the star-filled darkness. The water continues its quiet journey through the channels outside, patient and constant, connecting everything to everything else in an endless, gentle current that needs no explanation, only presence. You step back into the night, leaving the warmth of the tea house for the cool embrace of the darkened streets. The temperature change wraps around you like silk, cool but not cold, a gentle transition that your body welcomes after the close warmth inside. Your skin adjusts gradually, naturally, the way it does when stepping into shade on a summer day. The moon has risen while you are inside, not quite full but bright enough to silver the edges of buildings and throw soft shadows across the narrow streets. A slight breeze moves through the alleyway, barely enough to stir your clothes, just enough to carry away the last of the tea-house warmth from your skin. The city has a different quality now. Most shops have closed, their metal shutters pulled down, creating long walls of corrugated patterns that catch the moonlight in ripples. The busy chatter of commerce has been replaced by more intimate sounds, a television's muffled dialogue from an upper window, the clink of dishes being washed, a mother calling her children inside one last time. Your footsteps echo differently in this quieter world, each one seeming louder yet somehow more gentle, as if the night itself has softened the stone. You follow a street that climbs gradually upward, drawn by a glimpse of something extraordinary ahead, a long corridor of domes and facades that seem to glow in the moonlight. This is Shah-e-Zinda, the avenue of mausoleums that climbs the hillside like a river of sacred architecture, frozen in stone and tile. Even in darkness, perhaps especially in darkness, it emanates a presence that makes you slow your steps. The entrance is marked by a portal that frames the night sky perfectly, as if designed to capture stars. You pass through, and immediately the temperature drops again. These narrow passages between the tombs hold the cool air like vessels. The moonlight doesn't penetrate directly here. Instead, it reflects off the tiles above and fills the space with a blue-green luminescence that seems to come from the walls themselves. Each mausoleum you pass is different, yet they speak the same language of geometry and color. In daylight, these tiles would assault the eye with their brilliance, turquoise, cobalt, white, gold. But now they've become something else entirely. The blue tiles have deepened to the color of deep ocean water. The turquoise has become silver-green, like oxidized copper. The geometric patterns that were so precise in sunlight now blur and merge, creating new patterns that exist only in this half-light. A cat appears from between two tombs, moving with the liquid grace that cats reserve for nighttime. It pauses to regard you with eyes that catch the moonlight like small lamps, then continues on its way, padding silently up worn stone steps that you hadn't noticed before. You follow, curious where such confidence might lead. The steps are steeper than they appeared, worn smooth in the center by centuries of pilgrims and visitors. Your hand finds the wall for balance, and you feel the cool tiles under your palm, some smooth as glass, others rough where age has worn away the glaze. Halfway up you pause to catch your breath and look back. The city spreads below you, a patchwork of shadow and silver, punctuated by the occasional yellow window light. The sound of the city has faded to a distant hum, like the breathing of some enormous, sleeping creature. You pause at the top of the stairs, not from exertion, but from a pleasant tiredness that has settled into your legs. It's the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from unhurried walking, from letting your body find its own rhythm. Your shoulders, which you hadn't realized were raised against the cool air, drop and soften. You take a deep breath, feeling how the cool air fills your lungs differently than warm air does, cleaner somehow, more satisfying. At the top of the stairs, the necropolis opens into a small courtyard, where an ancient mulberry tree grows beside a simple fountain. The water isn't flowing strongly, just a trickle that falls from a worn spout into a basin below, creating a rhythm that your breathing unconsciously begins to match. The cat has disappeared, but you sense you're not alone. In the shadows beneath the tree, an old man sits on a bench, so still you almost missed him. He nods slightly, acknowledgement without intrusion, and returns to his contemplation. You continue through the necropolis, moving slowly between the tombs. Some are grand, with elaborate portals and intact tile work that transforms them into jewel boxes in the moonlight. Others are simpler, their decorations worn away, leaving only the elegant proportions to speak of their maker's intentions. The narrow passages between them create a maze of light and shadow, and you let yourself wander without destination, turning wherever the moonlight seems brightest or the shadows most inviting. Eventually, the path leads you out the other side of Shahi Zinda, and you find yourself on a quiet street that slopes down toward a grove of trees. The air here smells different, green and sweet, with hints of fruit and flowers. As you walk closer, you realize you've reached one of the old gardens that surround Bibi Khanim Mosque, though the mosque itself is only a massive shadow against the stars. The garden is walled, but the gate stands open, as if expecting night visitors. Inside, fruit trees create a canopy overhead, apricot, apple, pomegranate, their leaves rustling gently in a breeze you couldn't feel on the street. The paths between the trees are marked with pale stones that seem to glow faintly in the moonlight, making navigation easy despite the darkness. The scent here is gentle and layered. The fruit trees are past their main flowering, but some late blossoms remain, releasing their quiet perfume into the cool night air. Mixed with this is the smell of the earth itself, recently watered, and something else, perhaps jasmine or night-blooming roses, planted somewhere in the shadows. Each breath brings a soft combination of these scents, subtle enough that you have to pause to fully notice them. Like a whispered secret, the garden shares only with those who move slowly enough to listen. You follow one of the paths deeper into the garden, ducking occasionally under low-hanging branches. Spiderwebs span some of the gaps between trees, made visible by dewdrops that catch the moonlight like strung diamonds. You're careful not to disturb them. They seem too perfect, too much a part of the night's artwork. Near the center of the garden, you find another fountain, this one more elaborate than the one at Shahi Zinda. It's not running fully, water conservation even in the night, but small jets create gentle arcs that catch the moonlight before falling back into an octagonal pool. The sound is musical, each jet contributing its own note to a quiet water symphony. Stone benches surround the fountain, and you choose one, settling onto the cool stone that immediately begins to warm beneath you. From here, you can see the bulk of Bibi Khanim Mosque looming above the garden walls. In daylight, it would dominate everything, but now it's been reduced to a shape against the stars. Massive, mysterious, more felt than seen. The moon illuminates just enough to show the outline of its great arch and the suggestion of tile patterns, like seeing a mountain through mist. The garden isn't empty. As your eyes adjust further, you notice other people here and there. A couple sitting close together on a distant bench, someone walking slowly along the perimeter path, a small group near the garden's other entrance, engaged in quiet conversation. But everyone maintains the night's protocol of gentle distance, allowing each person their own bubble of solitude within the shared space. A rustling in the branches above makes you look up. A night bird of some kind has settled there, visible only as a darker shape against the dark leaves. It makes a soft chirping sound, not a full song but something more like sleep-talking, then falls silent again. The breeze picks up slightly, bringing a shower of flower petals down. They drift quietly through the air, landing on your clothes, in your hair, on the ground around your feet, each one carrying its faint perfume. Time has become elastic here. You might have been sitting for minutes or hours. The night doesn't insist on precision. Your breathing has slowed to match the fountain's rhythm. The cool air moves gently through the garden, barely disturbing the leaves above. Just enough movement to remind you that the world still breathes around you. You feel it on your face first, then your hands. the faintest touch of moving air that seems to carry all the garden's scents in slow circles. Your body has found its perfect temperature, neither warm nor cool, simply present, simply comfortable. The sounds of the city beyond the garden walls have faded to almost nothing, replaced by the night sounds of the garden itself. The soft whisper of leaves, water falling in its endless pattern, and beneath it all, a quality of quiet that seems almost tangible, like something you could wrap yourself in. Through a gap in the trees, you can see back toward the old city. A few lights still burn in windows, but most of the city has settled into darkness. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then stops, as if remembering it's too late for alarm. The moon has travelled considerably since you left the tea house, its angle changing the shadows, revealing new aspects of the garden while hiding others. You rise from the bench, joints stiff from sitting still in the cool air, and continue your wander. The path leads you past a small structure, perhaps a gardener's shed or an old prayer station, with a door standing slightly open. Inside, darkness is complete, but the smell of stored apples drifts out, concentrated autumn sweetness that makes your mouth water, despite not being hungry. The garden path eventually leads you back toward the street, but through a different gate than the one you entered. As you prepare to leave this peaceful enclosure, you turn back for one last look. The fountain continues its quiet music. The trees stand like patient guardians. The mosque maintains its silent watch. Everything continues exactly as it was, as it will be long after you've gone, as it has been for nights beyond counting. You step back onto the street, carrying the garden's peace with you like a soft weight in your chest. The night has deepened to its quietest hour, and the city around you has settled into near silence. Somewhere in the distance, you think you hear the faint click of game pieces on wood, or perhaps it's just the settling of old wood in the cooling night, or even your imagination filling the silence with remembered sounds. The sound, real or imagined, fades even as you notice it, dissolving into the great quiet that has claimed the city. Your footsteps are the loudest sound now, soft as they are on the worn stones. Even they seem to grow quieter with each step, as if you're gradually becoming part of the night itself, moving through it like the breeze you can barely feel. Heading deeper into the sleeping heart of Samarkand, where the darkness is soft and complete and welcoming. Your wandering has brought you to a quieter quarter of the old city, where the streets narrow even further and the sounds of the night have faded to almost nothing. The moon, which has been your companion through the evening, now sits lower in the sky, its light softer, more diffuse. Your steps have slowed naturally, not from tiredness exactly, but from a sense of approaching completion, as if your body knows that rest is near. Ahead, you notice an arched doorway, larger than the others you've passed, set into a wall that seems older, more substantial. The wooden doors stand partially open, and through the gap you glimpse a courtyard beyond. Something about this entrance feels familiar. The particular way the stones are worn at the threshold, the height of the arch built to accommodate loaded camels, the iron fixtures that once held torches. This is a place made for rest. You step through, and immediately the temperature changes. The courtyard you enter is surrounded on all sides by 2 stories of arched galleries, creating a protected space where the night air moves differently, more gently. This is a caravanserai, one of the old rest houses that once dotted the Silk Road, every day's journey apart. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, camel hooves and cartwheels. In their polished surface, you can feel the accumulated quiet of countless peaceful nights. The courtyard isn't large, maybe 30 paces across, but it feels spacious in its simplicity. A few trees grow from openings in the paved ground, mulberry and plane trees, whose roots must reach deep to find water. Their leaves rustle softly in the slight breeze that circles the enclosed space. In the center, the remains of an old fountain stand dry now, its basin filled with fallen leaves that shift and whisper with each breath of wind. The lower gallery is in deep shadow, but you can make out the dark openings of what were once storage rooms and stables. The upper level shows more promise. A wooden balcony runs along three sides, and you can see doorways leading to simple rooms. A narrow staircase in the corner, its steps worn into gentle curves, leads upward. As you climb, your hand finds the smooth wooden railing, polished by countless hands before yours. The wood is cool to the touch, almost soft from years of handling. Each step creaks slightly, a comfortable sound, like the settling of an old friend into a familiar chair. Halfway up, you pause to look back at the courtyard. From this height, you can see how the moonlight pools in the center, while the edges remain in shadow, creating a natural mandala of light and dark. The balcony is narrow but solid, the wooden planks worn smooth underfoot. You walk along it slowly, testing doors until you find one that opens easily. Inside is a simple room, just large enough for sleeping, with a low window that looks out over the courtyard. The floor is covered with worn carpets, their patterns faded but still visible in the moonlight that streams through the window. In one corner, cushions and blankets have been left folded, waiting for travelers. You arrange the cushions near the window, creating a comfortable place to sit and observe the night. The blankets smell faintly of lavender and age, not unpleasant, just the accumulated scent of quiet years. As you settle onto the cushions, you feel the last tension leave your shoulders. The wood of the window frame is smooth under your fingers as you rest your arms on the sill. From here, you have a perfect view of the courtyard, and, beyond the Caravanserai walls, glimpses of the sleeping city. The other rooms around the gallery are dark. You might be the only guest tonight, or perhaps other travelers rest so quietly they've become part of the building's silence. It doesn't matter. The solitude feels comfortable, complete. A movement in the courtyard below catches your eye. A cat, perhaps the same one from Shah-e-Zinda, perhaps another, crosses the moonlit center with unhurried purpose. It pauses at the dry fountain, sniffs at something interesting, then continues on its way, disappearing into the shadows of the lower gallery. The courtyard returns to stillness. The air has grown cooler still, but here in the shelter of the room, with blankets nearby if needed, the temperature is perfect, cool enough to sharpen the clarity of the night, warm enough to remain comfortable. You can feel how the stone walls have stored the day's heat and now release it slowly, creating a microclimate within the Caravanserai that feels separate from the outside world. Somewhere in the distance, footsteps echo, measured, unhurried. They grow closer, passing along the street outside. A pause at the Caravanserai entrance, then the steps continue on their way, fading gradually into the network of streets beyond. The rhythm was steady, purposeful, already becoming memory as the silence returns. Above, prayer flags have been strung between the buildings. You hadn't noticed them before, but now a stronger breeze sets them moving. They make a soft flapping sound, like quiet applause or whispered prayers. The fabric is too dark to see clearly, but you can make out their shapes against the stars. Rectangular shadows that dance and settle in an irregular rhythm that's somehow soothing. Through the window, you can see other buildings nearby, their windows mostly dark now. One by one, the few remaining lights go out. A yellow rectangle becomes dark, then another, like eyes closing for sleep. Each extinguished light makes the stars seem brighter, as if the city is gradually handing the night back to the sky. The sounds around you have become so minimal they seem to exist at the edge of perception. The faint rustle of leaves, the distant settling of old wood, the slow circulation of air through the galleries. The Caravanserai itself seems to breathe in long, gentle rhythms, air moving through the arched openings, circling the courtyard, carrying the coolness of night and the lingering warmth from the walls. Even these subtle movements seem to be softening, or perhaps you're simply becoming part of them, no longer separate from the night, but woven into its fabric. The moon has moved again, now sending light at such an angle that it illuminates only one corner of the courtyard, leaving the rest in velvet darkness. The contrast is gentle, dreamlike. The boundaries between light and shadow have become soft, uncertain, constantly shifting with the slight movement of branches overhead. You pull one of the blankets around your shoulders, not because you're cold, but because the weight of it feels comforting, grounding. The wool is soft with age, and as it warms from your body heat, it releases more of that faint lavender scent. You rest your head against the window frame, looking out at the night that has become so quiet it seems to pulse with its own form of silence. The air in the room moves so gently it's almost imperceptible, just enough to remind you that the space around you is alive, breathing its own quiet rhythm. Through the window comes the faintest movement of cooler air from outside, mixing with the warmer air near the walls, creating tiny currents that brush against your skin like silk. The whole Caravanserai seems to be settling deeper into rest, its ancient timbers releasing the day's tension in barely audible sighs, its stones cooling degree by degree, everything finding its nighttime equilibrium. Time has ceased to have meaning in the conventional sense. You could have been sitting here for minutes or hours. The city below continues its slow journey toward dawn, but that seems impossibly far away, irrelevant to this moment of deep stillness. Your eyes grow heavy, not with exhaustion, but with a deep contentment, a sense of having arrived exactly where you need to be. The last thing you're aware of is the quality of the darkness itself, not an absence but a presence, soft and enveloping as water. The stars above blur gently at the edges of vision. The moon continues its journey unnoticed. The ancient stones around you, the carpet beneath you, the cool air and the warm blanket, all of it begins to merge into one continuous field of gentle sensation. Sounds become distant, then more distant still. Edges soften. The courtyard below, the city beyond, the sky above, everything flows together like watercolors in rain. Your breath matches the breath of the Caravanserai, slow and deep, slower and deeper, until there's no distinction between the night around you and the quiet within. Just one vast peace that holds everything, including you, in its endless, gentle embrace.